Hello, everybody. I'm Lauren Francesca.
And I'm Brad Grunberg, and this is
How
How to Start.
Yay. Today we have Brad's friend on, Clint. Really excited, so excited to have you on. Clint Adams, all the way from Australia. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really appreciate it.
Sure. I met Clint on LinkedIn, and he is one of the good people in life. Today is a very special show for me because I'm honoring my prom date, Marlene Gamer, who sadly took her own life 10 years ago. And Clint helps many people with all sorts of mental stuff. And he's just one of the good people in this world who touches lives every day. Tell us a little about what you do, Clint, and your background and all the good stuff.
Yeah, look, I suppose, the background, I started off as a police officer of all things, literally trying to get into criminology and the CSI stuff that you see nowadays. It didn't quite work out that way. I had some experiences along the way that changed me to focus on counselling. And then over time, I kind of got into, I guess, just trying to help people at work level more as a HR professional and a health and wellbeing person. And then over time, I kind of got more information about young children, and I was really concerned with, seeing kids on antidepressants at 11 and 12 years old and stuff like that. And then I started doing, I say dabbled in it, but started developing a program for schools to try and help younger kids who may be at high risk because they've had pretty crappy upbringings and pretty crappy parents and that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, over time, I ended up writing a book, which is that one there called Lighting the Blue Flame. And that came out a couple of years ago. It took me about 6 or 7 years to write because there was a lot of neuroscience and stuff that I kind of had to go and research. Even though I have studies in that psych background, a lot of it's I don't find as effective as it probably could be. And that's kind of been enlightening for me that a lot of the counselling methodology is all reactive. A person's got to be in trouble before we can make it useful. So, yeah, over time, I've literally just been doing a lot of that, I work as a consultant in HR, but also do a lot of mental health speaking engagements and stuff like that. I run sessions and team sessions, and I'm actually putting in for funding at the moment for a program through the mental health here in Queensland. So there's a lot of, for me, it's just about, I think we can be a lot more effective with mental health in a proactive way, and I think a lot of it can go right back to school, things like that. And a lot of the big part of this book is all about trying to break bullying early on, because a lot of kids that unfortunately come through the system that have had that poor upbringing are the ones that often get picked on, and they don't have the coping skills, and then it just turns, it starts to spiral down, and that's kind of the nutshell version of what I do and why I'm doing it.
Awesome. Wow. And I just found your book on Amazon, and I just put it in. I pinned it if anyone wants to check out the book.
It's a wonderful book. Yes.
What is the Blue Flame?
So one of the undercurrents of the program I run is called Red Brain, Blue Brain, and it's really just about understanding how your brain, your unconscious brain and your conscious brain really work, and how you can kind of get hijacked by your red brain, your amygdala-driven emotions, where people get stuck a lot. So when I was dealing with people with PTSD, for example, you notice that the pattern is they're just focusing on that, let's say, fear or anger or whatever comes with the experience they had, and then you've literally got to change your focus into what I call blue brain, where you're using that frontal cortex to kind of problem solve. It's the problem solving part of the brain. It's also our social part of the brain. So that's why when people get really stuck in that poor mental health, it's, they withdraw from people. They don't want to be involved. There's a lot of things that come with that. So yeah, that's kind of where the blue bit comes from. So the flame part is in my head. I wanted to kind of send out, it all starts with a spark. So it's about lighting the blue flame is kind of how that comes about.
Let me ask you, so kids being picked on, there's always someone out there to talk to. People think, they get into the darkness, they think they have nowhere to turn, but there's always someone to talk to. There's with the loss that I had with my beautiful Marlene, she didn't think there was anybody, and I was there for her. And there's always somebody who will listen. And I think no matter where you are in life, that you can get back to the light. Do you agree, Clint?
Absolutely. Like there's lots of people. I've certainly seen people turn things around. The people that I've been, had as clients over the years, and some people that turn a lot of things around. I also talk a lot to people who, as I was doing research for the book, I was talking a lot to people who'd had these kinds of experiences themselves where they haven't gone through it and things have changed for them, and even ones that have tried it and been unsuccessful. I mean, genuinely unsuccessful, where they've jumped off bridges and all kinds of things. And the stories that they tell you is in the moment that it was happening, they kind of go, oh crap, I didn't want to do it. And so they kind of realize that, you get to that dark point, but they don't really want to take their own life. They really just want to stop the pain. There's a slight difference in saying that stuff. And so, you get a lot of insight from people that have been survivors or people that have changed the way they do it. And for me, that's where I kind of noticed that when they do that shift, the moment they make a decision to change something, it's really a shift from that red brain into the blue. And that's kind of the techniques and the things that people, like I've worked out that, I actually ran a session for counsellors in the UK through one of the online colleges there. And a lot of the counsellors there, they get trained in counselling, but they don't always understand why those things might work for some people, don't work for other people. And it's about understanding more the principles behind why those things, because all those modalities work for a number of reasons. Even little things like, I'm not big into it, but my daughter is. She's into crystals and stuff like that as part of a healing thing, right?
I know somebody else into crystals too.
Right. Okay. Let me guess. It's not you. But yeah, so I understand it in the sense that whatever works for people to change from that into that, like it's about hope and belief and using the blue brain to get to wherever that needs to be. And if it's crystals, if it's religion, as long as it's not hurting anybody else, to me, I don't care. There's many ways to the top of that mountain. So just understanding the principles behind the brain factor in that is the key part to how those things become effective for each person.
Right.
That's super interesting. That's so interesting, Brad. I think we lost you. Oh, we lost Brad, but I'm sure he will come back. Now, what about the situation? And I'm super sad today, guys. I don't know if my viewers, I talked about it a little bit on my Instagram. I lost my really good friend, and it's just so upsetting. What about the situations where you really want to help someone and it's just like you can't? Like, how does that?
Yeah, look at that, and that happens a bit, right? Sometimes it's more about understanding why that's not resonating with them. So sometimes obviously in such a bad place where they might have to be medicated. I'm not a big fan of the medication piece, but certainly not in a long-term sense because it doesn't fix the problem. But sometimes people in such a bad place where they might have to, have the right medication to kind of calm them down, because if they're in like a really bad, I had not so long ago, a person that I know quite well they were really in a bad anxiety state, and so they really needed to go and get, the right pills, and they calm right down, and then you can be more effective. But that said, I mean, sometimes it's also about the counsellor. They don't resonate with the person, or it depends on what's caused it. Like if you've got, a woman that's had, domestic violence or been raped or something like that, then, a male's not going to be the best counsellor for that person because there's already a gap, or not a gap, an obstacle in there that sits in the back. And so understanding, what the causes are, sometimes it can be, trying different things is the key, rather than saying, oh, well, I'm your counsellor and you kind of have to come and see me, is not the right way. And I think that's the other thing about counselling in general is a lot of counsellors think their way is the only way. I don't think that way. I really think that, if it doesn't work for you, or I might actually, as I'm talking to the person, realize that maybe I'm not the right one for them. And so, or they don't feel that, I might know what can help them. But if they don't get that, I can actually make things a lot worse. And so, referring them off to somebody else sometimes isn't what a lot of counsellors want to do, because they feel like, they're losing a client or something. So that's kind of, there's a lot of reasons. I suppose it all depends. They're individualized a lot of the time of why the person's not doing those things. One of the other things that with the brain too is sometimes they're in such a bad place that some parts of the brain are actually deactivated. That's the part that people don't necessarily realize. So they're hearing it, they're asking for help, and then they just don't do it because they just don't have any motivation for it.
What? So let me ask you, when you were working with the police department, what was that like?
As a cop, or when I
yeah,
went
as a
back?
cop, yeah. What was that like? Dealing with the
Look,
public,
yeah, look,
protecting.
I found it helpful in the sense that I got to see a lot. I mean, obviously, as a cop, you don't get called there for good things most of the time, right? So you're seeing a lot of the worst part of humanity, unfortunately, and it gave me a lot of insight around where I am now doing what I do, because, you know, you do see people who are really disadvantaged because of who their parents are and what's happening around them every day, and it gives you a lot of insight around how some of those patterns just keep reoccurring if we don't change it. You know, we've got third generation people who've never worked kind of stuff, and you know, they don't want to work, they're not motivated to work because mum and dad never worked, grandpa never worked. So, you know, that whole surrounding every day is just their life, and so that just seems normal. So yeah, it gives you a lot of insight. I mean, probably looking back now, I'm glad I did it, but I certainly wouldn't want to be a cop now. Put it that way.
Sure. It's tough. I mean, you know, we're all going through all sorts of stuff with law enforcement and stuff. And I love cops. I mean, to defund them, we just need to retrain and enlighten them. And it's such a tough job. It's like you said, they don't get called for happy things, happy times.
Right.
Did
Yeah,
you, when you stopped being a cop, did you have to go to extra schooling, or how was that transition?
So I already had a science degree in psychology when I joined the police force. And then I kind of, at about the 4 or 5 year mark, I had an experience with a lady in the cells who I was talking to, and I sort of helped her. And then I kind of got more excited by doing more counselling side. So then I did more studies, yes, while I was in the police force. With the cops here, we get 9 weeks leave a year. So I was flying to Sydney, which is a couple of hours flight from where I lived. You know, we could do it by correspondence originally, and then I would go and do practicals there over a 2 year span. So yeah, I did a rehabilitation counselling thing at Sydney University, a postgrad diploma on top of that. And so that studies kind of got me to the counselling point. And then yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to do, and left the police force for a bit, and then they dragged me back in to do that for them.
How do you, I ask nurses this question, doctors, people that, you know, deal on a daily basis with the public and help people like yourself. How do you separate it? How do you come back to your family? I mean, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, you're a guy with a big heart. I know you, I love you. How do you separate it? Because you can go crazy. I mean, I could see you took some time off the police force. Maybe it was for that reason. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. The gruesome things, I say, haven't bothered me. I've kind of been okay with those. The ones that hit me the most involved children. Like I went to a SIDS death, so a cot death, you know, a child under the age of 2 or whatever. Just like no one's fault. Just, you know, dad go to wake her up in the morning, finds her that she's died, tries to do CPR, all that, call the ambos, they try and do CPR, obviously they can't do it. So you turn up there as a cop, you got to treat it suspicious, right? So you got to say, hey, you got to put the kid down, no one touched the child, all this kind of stuff. So it's not pleasant. And at the time, my daughter was around that similar age, and I came home and that really affected me. That was tough to deal with because, you know, I've been to hangings and all kinds of stuff, and as much as you see it, as cops, you tend to use humour to kind of get through the whole black humour, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I won't even give you suggestions of some of the things we would say to each other when we'd go to these things. But yeah, I think that gets you through a little bit. You know, you kind of make light of it because you kind of, I think you detach yourself a little bit. So you probably do use these techniques. So you're not kind of invested. But with that particular child, and I went to a couple of other accidents involved kids, they just seemed worse, I suppose, and it affected me more.
The saddest thing about children is they just started their life. They're so impressionable. They're just learning, like you said, they have bad parents. I mean, the generation, to stop that generation after generation, and it can be done. Could you tell our audience who are going through some of this stuff that they can stop it? They could, change their life, change like their parents and their grandparents.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that people forget is we talk about the bad cases, but we also got to look at what they call the positive deviants, the ones that actually they come out of this crap and they're fine, not fine. They're almost better off because they've had adversity, they've seen the crap, they've dealt with it, they've moved on, and they've changed their lives for the better for whatever reason. And they're the people I talk to a lot. I was talking to a lady who was from an Islander background, so they're very religious. Her husband was domestic violence, beating her up, all this kind of stuff. And she stayed because she was fearful of how people would perceive it. Because of the religion, you know, can't be divorced. The background that she's from is also the husband's seen as, you know, the ruler of the house and all that stuff. And so there's a lot of things keeping her stuck for so long. And then, you know, the beauty about it was, and this is where I was talking about that switch where they go from that red into blue. She made a decision that goes, I can't stay here. I've got to change things. And so when you make that decision, it's amazing how you make plans, you switch to blue, and then you kind of, things start to happen for you. You're either dragging that energy that just helps you get through, or you get the right people talking to you. And so where your focus is what you get more of. And so when you see that change for those people and then suddenly all these better things happen, yeah, it always makes you feel great when you see someone able to kind of step out of all that adversity and then make something awesome out of it. And now she does, you know, on the road kind of stuff, talking to people and helping other women in similar things. So yeah, it's definitely doable.
I definitely really want to read your book now.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you make that change to blue? Like, is there an easy way, or, you know, Cliff's
Is there a shortcut there, Clint?
There's a shortcut, but it's literally about being deliberate about how you think. And once you understand that that's possible. Like one of the things I used to do, just to give you an example, right? When I'm working with someone with PTSD, so let's say they've had an issue, someone pointed a gun at their head, like one police officer did, and he keeps thinking about this memory, goes over and over in his head, and it just makes him feel angry, but then also sad. He's typically almost broke down. So for me, it was about changing that habit where our neurons wire and fire together when we have a memory. And so what happens is, as we do it more and more and more, when we create a loop, our brain kind of makes it a shortcut. And so that shortcut can be positive or negative. If you're learning a new skill and we get better at it, you don't have to think about it all the time, like driving a car, right? When we learn it, it's all hard work at the start. You have to think about these things, but then it becomes hardwired and you can just drive for hours now and not even think about it. And so same with when you get into a poor pattern, you need to try and go, well, this is what's happening. You've got a shortcut happening. So part of the therapy is to try and break that. How do I do that? So when I go, I want you to be in blue brain. Now I know that the blue brain, the prefrontal cortex, is does analysis work. When you're analyzing stuff, that's the part of the brain that's going. So I just get them doing like a thoughts journal, for example. So that's why journaling and gratitude things, anything that's a blue brain experience can help break that pattern. So I say when you have that thought, all I want you to do is write something in the thoughts diary. So because you're doing that analysis work, you're actually breaking a pattern. So what was wiring and firing together really tight before is maybe not as tight. And then the next time it's less tight, and the next time it's less tight. And you start to put things into practice a bit more, and even changing the memory as a director. I mean, you guys are both in film, right? You're a director of your own thoughts. So you go, that's an old memory now. It's like an old movie. We can change that or re-edit it, or you're the director. So understanding that you can do those things is kind of key to those blue brain changes.
You know, it's interesting. I have friends that reach out to me and people that I meet. I always like to touch lives. And what I always tell people is try to stay in the light. You know, a lot of people, when they have adversity, they go to the darkness, you know, because that's a comfortable place for them, knowing that if nothing works out, I'm already here, you know. Yeah. But I try to get people back in the light and think positively that they can make changes. You know, I believe that, you know, you are a creature of your environment. You know, you hang out with people that bring you down, you're going to be brought down, right? Yeah. I mean, you've got to change that in life and hang out with people that are positive and really love you. And that's so important, right? I mean, you know, you see all, you know, these poor kids, you know, who are bullied. Can you talk about that? These kids that are bullied on social media, that is just horrible. I mean, it's, you know, we've all been picked on as kids, but this is like, you know, everybody sees this at one time. How do you tell kids how do they deal with that?
So the book is actually written about a kid who suicides because he's been bullied, and
Oh,
part of the book. So many years ago when I went to, I kind of thought, how do I develop a school program that can help a child who maybe is being bullied or is likely to be bullied because of whatever. So part of this process for me is about a program that you take into schools where like when I run stuff at the workplace where there might be a hostile kind of workplace, you kind of do change management things where you want people to talk about the problems, let's deal with the problems, let's have really good conversations about this, and explain what's happening. But what you find is that even adults are too scared to talk about poor behaviour of their colleagues, of their manager, because there's a fear factor to having those conversations. And so that to me is a big part of what needs to happen at school level, because if you're 5 years old, 6 years old, starting school, you don't think about labels. You don't think about all that stuff, right? We sort of learn it along the way, and then we pick on the other kid because it makes us feel better, or it's not me, so it's great. So there's lots of dynamics to that whole process. But if schools were doing this as a skill set for kids, like having children all have a conversation where, one kid might say every day, look, little Johnny pulled my hair. Now that's at 5 and 6. So we're calibrating behaviour that we are happy with or not happy with in a group. When you do it in a group, you're also creating some courageousness with the other kids who might normally sit silent and not say stuff. So it's kind of twofold. And for me, that's a big part of what schools should be doing to kind of enhance not just the skill set, but also creating that other kids going, hang on, this is crap behaviour. I didn't like it either. So you can feel more courageous if someone else talks about it first. And so part of that process is a real key to changing things at school level.
that's great.
That's great. Oh, Brad, I was just wanted to ask
No,
him.
please.
I have a few friends. It's just, I mean, I don't know what's going on in the world today, but I have a few friends that just lost kids.
Wow.
And it's the worst. I feel so horrible. It's one of my friends that I grew up. It happened with a girl that I knew online where her daughter actually had leukemia, and then it happened again out of nowhere to another one of my friends that I grew up with, and just out of nowhere, like 5 years old, just one night, just didn't wake up. What are some things that you tell people who are grieving, or how to get better? It's just like I never know what to say, and I just feel like I can't help.
Yeah, look, I mean, all you can do is pass on your condolences, as that is. I mean, one of the parts in the book, I do go into the grieving part with the mother in the book. So I'm a character in the book helping all these people deal with this in different ways. Obviously, there's the mother who's grieving. There's also kids who had been friends with this person also grieving. Mum also finds the child, which is even worse. And so, there's a number of things, I guess, in any death, there's always, going to be some sadness and stuff that come with it. Obviously, with a younger person, there's a lot of, if it's a suicide, it's even worse again, because, you can kind of go, well, could I have done anything different? There's always guilt, and that's very complex around how people react in that moment. But I think when it comes to genuinely, I mean, all you can say is, I'm sorry, I'm here to help. And sometimes they'll accept it and sometimes they won't. But I think it's important to at least, there's some really great books out there. How to Bulletproof Your Life is one. I certainly use that. In my book, there's a lot of QR codes that kind of link to different books and stuff that I kind of talk to people about when I'm running this stuff. A lot of stuff is in my own. It's stuff that I've learned over time, and it works, and for certain people. And like even little things around grieving is about looking at it as a celebration of that person's life. What were the good times? Some people don't want to have any emotion about it because they just want to put it down because there's so much pain in it. But it's kind of like, again, you can focus it in a positive way around. A lot of people do their own foundations when they have young people die. I was just at a foundation event recently where one of the Australian women was killed in the terrorist attacks a couple of years ago, and in London, and her parents are now doing a foundation, and the two of them, funny enough, they cope with it very differently. She's very spiritual now. He's gone down more of a business path about this foundation. And so, it's about not distracting yourself, but finding ways to make it a positive. Again, you can always sit there in sadness and feel self-pity and your loss, which it clearly is. But when you get stuck there again, that's when it becomes a problem, right? Some people just can't deal with it. I had to deal with a couple whose son died. He drowned, and they were both police officers at the time.
Ugh.
So yeah, that's stuff to deal with, and you can't say, "Hey, man, you got to get over it," kind of stuff, because it's not that easy, and everyone does it on a different time frame. But I think there's also about just at least putting techniques and things in there that go, you can celebrate the life. What are you going to do, and try to focus them in a way that is a bit more positive without pushing that on them, if that makes sense.
I wanted to explain something that happened in the last year. People think that when people have money and fame and success, that all their problems go away. It usually creates more problems. And one of my friends that I grew up with, I played baseball with, he committed suicide. A very, very wealthy guy, very, successful guy. But the isolation of the pandemic put him over the edge, and he took his own life. And it was just like, it was like one of those things. Why would he do that? He had this, he had that. But those are just things. Money, we're all the same. Some people are more fortunate than others. Yeah. I mean, could we talk about the pandemic in the isolation part of this? What would you recommend people do? I mean, they think that, being isolated is very, very tough for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
To reach out, where can they reach out? What can they do?
Look, I think a lot of us, we're talking right now in different parts of the world, right? And you're still face to face. So I think we can use the platforms that are out there, phone calls. It's about reaching out and just like, sometimes it's, if you've got friends that you haven't spoken to for a while, just touching base. I got a friend, he's in Victoria, I haven't seen for a bit, and I touched base with him. He actually had COVID just recently and prompted me to talk to him because he's one of my best friends. And I had my 50th earlier in the year, so it was like 6 months ago. And that's the last time I saw him, but I haven't spoken to him for so. Anyway, he's struggling a bit because he had to go into isolation. We're not quite as bad as America with the isolation, but Victoria certainly has been one of the worst. So, he's struggling with it. So again, it's about just reaching out. He felt a lot better. We spoke for a bit and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's just reaching out is the key.
I agree, because Lauren and I have talked about this. I reach out to people, I hadn't talked to you. I just want to tell you, hey, I just want to see how you're doing and hope you're staying safe and healthy. I think that that goes a far way. Really, it's good because most people don't do that. And if you reach out to what does it take? Less than 10 seconds to text somebody or call somebody and just say hi, right?
Yeah. 100%, and even little things like little gestures that like we sent a care pack to a friend recently where it was just groceries and stuff that we know they like, and it was like rocked up on the door and say, "Hey, you home?" "Yeah, I'm home." "Okay, well, they'll be there in an hour," type of stuff. So little things like that, I think gives you a little bit of a buzz, and then people reach out back and they call you, and then we have a chat, and I just think. If you even schedule it into your time, because especially like you said, but then you don't always know if people are struggling. That's the problem, right? Like, and if people are struggling, and the worst part is when they are struggling, they go underground even more. They don't reach out. That's the difference. They don't think blue brain, which is that social part of the brain. So that's the other thing about blue brain, right? It's our social part. Like when we're interacting, that's when we like having people around. And look, he might be one of those people who liked having people around him because that made him feel good, but when they're not around him, he's dealing with other things. And so I don't know if that was a distraction or what his background is, but sometimes that can be, they're masking.
Oh, my friend? Yeah. He was a very social guy, and he loved his friends, but he wasn't able to see them, and it just got worse and worse. And he had plenty of resources to get help, but he was just so isolated. He just, he took it. I mean, it was just horrible. And any suicide's horrible, but this was really bad.
Yeah.
And, I pray for him, and I hope he's in a better place, but it just, like when I think about my prom date, Marlene, we had talked about it. She had said, I'm thinking about taking my life. And I was like, Marlene, if you take your life, you leave everybody behind. The destruction is us. I mean, do you love me? Yes. Do you love yes. I go, but Marlene, I have to pick up the pieces. You go. And I think she just, it was like I was there for her, but I couldn't be there 24/7,
Yeah.
But I told her I was there, and I was always there for her. But she just, she had it in her family, by the way. She had mental illness, and depression. And it's
Yeah.
just a terrible, terrible thing. Anxiety, depression. I mean, I just want people to know there is help out there, to talk to somebody. Reach out, please. You're not alone. Everybody has a moment, right? I mean, no one lives a perfect
Right.
life.
And you're right. There's very few people that haven't had some adversity in their life, right? At the end of the day, the small percentage of the ones that do take their life, and it's a very small percentage, they just haven't been able to deal with whatever's caused that. And there's a lot of people that have had similar things happen, and they've been able to deal with it and still function and do those things. So understanding that, reaching out, there's a lot more. What I love when I have sessions with groups in front of me is when someone comes out and says, I had mental health issues, and amazingly, how many more people then come out and talk about it more. And it just takes away some of that stigma. It creates what I call safety in the conversation, right? Where now people feel safe. Once one person comes out, then the others will talk about it, the easier it becomes. And, as I think generationally, we're getting better at that. We're talking about mental health a lot more than certainly when I was a kid, but still, it amazes me we don't do enough of the discussion points at school level, where we're just trying to make the unspeakable speakable, if that makes sense.
That's so funny you said, because my brother, he is an actor too, and his son, my nephew, has epilepsy. So he created a campaign and an organization called Talk About It. Talk about epilepsy. Bring it out. Bring it to the surface. A lot of people have it, but when you talk about it, it like you said, it brings more people out. It reduces the stigma that's attached to it. Oh, you have epilepsy, all that stuff. And what he does is just incredible. And most people should come out. Everybody, if they have a problem, talk to a friend, talk to a stranger, if you don't want anybody to know, talk to a stranger. So no one would ever know. Like, I was a Lyft driver for 5.5 years. Oh my goodness. I couldn't believe how many people opened up to me within the short ride we took about really amazing things. They never saw me again, but I tried to give them advice, and I hope I touched a few lives in that 5.5 years. Lauren, do you have anything to say?
I want Clint. I love what you have to say about everything, and I think the work you do is amazing, and it's definitely thank you for your service. I feel like we all need a mental health talk on a regular basis. Is there any place that, let's say, people can't afford it, or they can't go out there and do it? I know it's probably different where you are than it is here, but what are your tips for people out there that just need to talk to somebody? Is there a free service? Are there videos? What's your advice?
Look, I mean, I guess if there's no service, there's obviously normally helplines. Like in Australia, we have something called Lifeline, and we've got different companies that actually runs free services that are run through the government. But essentially, I think it's just about, for me, it's twofold. It works both ways. So if I know a bit more about mental health first aid, I can help my friend, and I can maybe look for some signs, and I can be proactive and also feel more comfortable having a chat. A lot of times when friends come out and they say things, the other person doesn't know what to do or maybe how to direct them. And to your point before, Brad, if they, like, there's a lot of great books out there. Obviously mine, I love my book, but there's lots of other ones out there. Like if people want to understand their bodies more, it's a great book called The Body Keeps Score, right? Where you have real understanding of people that have had trauma and how their brains, certain things have shut down. They don't necessarily know those things, but then it's about kind of education's the key for me, is about making you take you from being unconsciously incompetent about mental health to consciously incompetent. Once you're consciously incompetent, you go, holy crap, I don't know anything about this. I need to go and find out stuff. And so that's kind of, even that's how I kind of wrote the book, about giving people, like, there's a lot of stuff in there. It's not mine, as I said, but giving people ideas of what books they can go read and how it can change things for them, and thinking differently about their thinking. For me, you think about physical health, we know all this stuff about Pilates and running and cardio, and there's F45 and gyms and, personal trainers and all that. But when you talk about mental health, we go, oh, you go see a counselor. That's kind of the go-to, or do meditation or something fairly basic. But there's lots of things out there that people don't understand about, how the brain works, getting your oxytocin levels up, just by having a dog around you. They're little things that you do, so yeah.
Yeah, we're dog people. One thing I have to say, because we're going to wrap this up soon, is that the reason I'm doing this show is because of Lauren. Lauren has such a big heart. She does so much for people. She has no idea how many lives she touches on a daily basis with her social media. And that's one of the, so I just want to say that publicly. She is a real special person.
Well, thank you, Brad. Brad, guys, one of the things I think that helps me a lot is having good friends you can talk to. And Brad is just that person. I don't know how many people want to message Brad, but find a guy like Brad in your life that will pick up the phone and talk and just,
It's always nice to have people that will listen. Everybody loves a party. Oh, I'm having a party. Oh, I'm there. And then you say, hey, I'm going through a tough time. And then all of a sudden, oh, I got to go. You know what I'm saying? No one wants to deal with that, but they always just want to be there for the good times, right? And that's the sad part. It's a real friend's there during the bad times. That's when when you have real special people in your life.
Yeah, totally.
Can people reach out to you, Clint?
Look, LinkedIn or it's probably my easiest one, because like from a work perspective, I've run heaps of sessions on different stuff over the last couple of years, especially. The book came out just before COVID, funnily enough.
Wow.
I had about a week of excitement before COVID hit. So I haven't had too much luck trying to get out and really promoting it. So maybe this year will be better. Or sorry, next year will probably be better with the restrictions and travel and stuff. I was supposed to do some stuff in Canada last year, which didn't happen. I've got invited again for next year, so maybe it'll happen. So we'll see if I can get out there doing more of that as well.
That's great. Well, this has been so much fun and so informative, and we're touching lives today. I just want to say, I want to honor my prom date for life, Marlene, and my friend Steve, who are no longer with us, and using their stories, I hope, help other people today. But people can reach out to Clint. Clint, we got to have you back on the show. And
happy to.
Really a lot of fun, and thank you for everything you do and all the lives you touch. And as
thank
we
you
say, yes, you're so
Thanks,
welcome.
Lauren.
You're so welcome. And again, I'm Brad Grunberg.
I'm Lauren Francesca. Guys who ask questions, please go and message Clint. Slide into his DMs. He's awesome. I just want to say I'm very sorry about my friend Bryce, who passed away, and hopefully we will talk more to Clint, because I feel like mental health is just, it affects everything. It affects all of your wellness, your circulatory systems, and everything. So make sure you follow Clint for more awesome stuff. I'm going to check out his book.
Same
The
here.
Blue Flame. If you Google it, it's on Instagram. If you want to show us the book again real quick.
Yeah, and I think I might. There it is. I might just, change my moniker. Stay in the blue, not the light. Stay in the blue light, right, Clint?
That's it. The blue flame, mate. The blue light.
The blue light, the blue flame. I love it. Well, take care, Clint. Stay safe in Australia. We'll see you next time. And
okay, bye.
How to start.
How to start. Learn from Brad Grunberg.
Bye, you guys. See you next time.
Bye.
See you next time.